I hate to say it, but I do feel like right now the Philadelphia 76ers are just delaying the inevitable. And the inevitable being they finally have to go in a different direction and enter into somewhat of a rebuild or a retooling phase. I really wanted it to work out, but since they drafted Joel Embiid, it feels like they hit a peak with their roster building. Drafting Embiid back in the 2014 NBA draft, taking a massive risk on somebody that had serious knee concerns coming out of Kansas. They won 18 games in the 2015 season, drafted Jahlil Okafor, who had one good year in Philly. Then they won 10 games in 2016 under Sam Hinkie, and they took Ben Simmons. They had the number one pick in 2017, selected Markelle Fultz. We know how that one went. But from 2016 to 2018, they went from 10 wins to 52 wins and even winning a playoff series against the Miami Heat. You could say they most likely peaked in the 2019 season after acquiring Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler. They ended up losing, and we all know that buzzer beater against the Raptors in Game 7. But since then, they've had so much roster turnover over the last few years, with just one guy staying there being Joel Embiid. Jimmy Butler leaves. They bring in Al Horford. They have to trade him. They max out Tobias Harris, and their fans wanted nothing to do with him after the 2024 season. They draft Mikal Bridges, then trade him away for Zaire Smith, who unfortunately never really played for the 76ers. They could thank Mike Muscala for being able to get Tyrese Maxey in the 2020 NBA draft. And 2021 is when things broke down with Ben Simmons against the Atlanta Hawks in round number 2. They eventually are able to trade him in a great deal for James Harden at the 2022 deadline. Harden spends a year and a half in Philadelphia. Basically, they lose to Miami in the 2022 playoffs in round number 2, and then they lose to Boston in a series they could have won in the Eastern Conference semifinals in 2023, and they had to trade Harden at the 2024 season. So basically, since they drafted Embiid, we all know they have not made it to a conference finals. Embiid wins 2023 MVP, was so dominant in 2024, I thought he was going to win MVP yet again, but the injuries kept up with Joel Embiid, and he was essentially playing on one leg and also playing with one eye. He had Bell's palsy against the New York Knicks in round number 1, and Joel Embiid in that series averaged 33 points, 11 rebounds, and 5.5 assists, and I was there in person for game number 5, where Tyrese Maxey saved the 76ers season with the 4-point play, the deep 3 to send it into overtime, and that was a star-making performance. And I remember just asking all my Sixers fans here in Philly, like, what you thought about after that series, because we were going at it because I'm a Knicks fan, and they're like, you know what, we don't really care that we lost, we know that Tyrese Maxey can be a star. And then for some reason, Joel Embiid wanted to play in the Olympics, and I get it, right? You want to win a gold medal. It's a massive deal and an amazing accomplishment in your career, but it feels like that was just kind of unnecessary with all the injury concerns surrounding Joel Embiid. He's injured before the start of the 2025 season, and he never looked healthy. He ended up just appearing in 19 games for the 76ers and looked like a shell of what he was from 2021 to 2024, when you can make an argument he was the first, second, or third best player in the NBA. He averaged 24 points, shot 44% from the field, 29% from 3, and they had an 8-11 record with him in the lineup. And I think Sixers fans were also a little bit disappointed in 2025 with Tyrese Maxey because they thought he could be a star and a franchise leader after the 2024 playoffs, but he really struggled with his efficiency and the increase in workload. When Joel Embiid was injured, Maxey was not efficient. He was forcing a lot of bad shots, and when he was the main focus point of the opposing team's defense, they were really able to limit him, what made him so effective with Joel Embiid being able to play off of one of the best players in the NBA. And I haven't even mentioned two massive moves from the 2024 offseason. One that looks great for the future, and one that may be the downfall of Joel Embiid's time in Philadelphia. We'll start with the latter. They gave Paul George a max contract in the 2024 offseason. They were able to free up a max contract spot because they waited until Maxey was a restricted free agent who had a smaller cap hold, since he was the 20th pick in the draft. So they were able to absorb Paul George on a max contract instead of going out and signing 2 to 3 role players instead, and that's what they should have done in hindsight. And Paul George's contract is still one of the worst in the NBA, in my opinion. He's owed $51.5 million in 2026, $54 million in 2027, and $56.5 million in 2028. Paul George was banged up in his first year in Philadelphia. He played 41 games. He averaged 16 points, 4 assists, 5 rebounds a night, shot 43% from the field, 35% from 3. But also what is discouraging, he just took 2.5 free throws a night. Back in 2023, when he was an all-star for the Clippers, he took 5.3 free throws a night. They went down to 3.9 in 2024 and down to 2.4 in 2025. And Paul George is not going to be as effective if he's a little bit hesitant going to the rim, with him getting up there in age. And in those 41 games last year, the 76ers had a 15-26 record with Paul George in the lineup. This team was also just decimated by injuries, because the brightest spot of the 2025 Sixers was their 2024 first round pick in a weak draft, McCain, who was a smaller guard coming out of Duke, who I thought was a great pick for Philadelphia with the 16th overall selection right outside the lottery, who wasn't really involved in the lineup to start off the year, but then the injury to Tyrese Maxey happened earlier in the year. Embiid was banged up, Paul George was banged up, and they needed somebody to step up, and that's where McCain came into play. On November 6th against the Clippers, he played 12 minutes. On November 8th against the Lakers, he played 30 minutes, and he didn't look back then. The Sixers didn't have a great record, but over the first 10 games with McCain getting an increase in minutes, he averaged 23.5 points, 4 assists, shot 39% from 3 on 9.5 attempts a night, and was a shoo-in to win Rookie of the Year before he suffered a season-ending injury. He still got some Rookie of the Year votes after only playing 23 games. Shade of Embiid not winning Rookie of the Year in 2016 because of the games played. McCain also suffered a concussion, and that major injury was a lateral meniscus tear in his left knee, which is kind of concerning for the 2026 season. That is a major injury for a smaller guard who relies on his off-ball movement, his agility, his quickness, and I wonder if it's going to take some time in 2026 for McCain to look like what he did back in 2025. It was looming over the trade deadline. Could they move a Gershon Yabusele? Because this team was trying to bottom out because their pick was top 7 protected to the OKC Thunder. They didn't trade Gershon. He left to a division rival in the 2025 offseason in the New York Knicks, and they replaced him with Trendon Watford. And a big thing looming over the Sixers 2025 offseason was Quentin Grimes as a restricted free agent. Now, this was also one of the very few bright spots for the 2025 Sixers. They were able to get a second-round pick and Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin at the deadline. It was not a good February for Nico Harrison over there in Dallas, and Quentin Grimes exploded basically as the #1 option in the second half of the 2025 season for the Sixers. 22 points, 5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, shot 47% from the field, 37% from 3, and is a solid point of attack defender. And we've seen that in the playoffs before with the New York Knicks back in 2023, where he was great defensively against Cleveland in round number 1. And Grimes' numbers are not going to look that good back in Philadelphia in 2026 because he's not going to be the #1 option. You have Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, Paul George, McCain splitting touches now with Grimes, but he's still going to be a great role player. And I mentioned before how Philadelphia was trying to bottom out to get their first round pick. And on the night of the lottery, ESPN messed up and said they were losing their pick, but they also jumped up and went to number 3, in which we all thought they could trade the pick or they were going to select Ace Bailey. Neither of those two options happened, and they selected VJ Edgecombe out of Baylor, a player I love in the 2025 draft, but it is a weird fit in Philadelphia. Edgecombe is one of the best athletes in the class, so he could play up a little bit, but he's 6'4", 6'5", and I wonder if he can ever guard threes at the NBA level, because if he can't, now you have Grimes, Edgecombe, Maxey, and McCain in a cluttered backcourt. But hey, that's a good problem to have right now, especially if you're with Philadelphia. They brought back other veterans this offseason as well, like Eric Gordon, Kyle Lowry, Kelly Oubre, and Andre Drummond opted into their $8.3 million player option and their $5 million player option. Both are now expiring contracts that you assume could be traded at the deadline. I mentioned before how they brought in Trendon Watford, losing Gershon Yabusele. I don't mind that contract whatsoever. It's 1.5% of their team's total cap, and it has a team option for 2027, and it's somebody that could run the floor, could play solid defense, and they need more power forward depth. They had Jabari Walker, a former Portland Trailblazer like Watford, on a 2-way contract. And also some of these second round and undrafted players from the 2024 class will have a prominent role in Philadelphia in 2026. Adem Bona had some eye-popping moments as a rookie last year, one of my favorite sleepers in the 2024 class out of UCLA because of his eye-popping athleticism. He can run up and down the floor extremely well for somebody that's 6'10", and he's a monster athlete. He's super physical inside, plays with so much intensity, and that's exactly what Philadelphia needs behind Joel Embiid. Over the years, it's been Dwight Howard, Andre Drummond, Paul Reed, guys that have lacked motor and intensity at certain points of their careers, so it's a nice breath of fresh air to have Adem Bona behind Embiid. And Morey also cooked, getting Justin Edwards as an undrafted free agent last year as well. Edwards was the 3rd ranked high school recruit going into the 2024 collegiate season, had somewhat of a down year at Kentucky. He goes undrafted, and he looked great as a rookie with an increase in playing time, around 10 points, 3.5 rebounds in 44 games, shooting 45% from the field, 36% from 3, and made some really good moves for somebody that was a rookie just getting thrown out there because of the depleted Sixers roster. And they were able to give him a 3-year guaranteed contract this offseason, which is phenomenal for Philadelphia long term. And they also added Janai Broome, one of the best players in college basketball last year from Auburn. So it is nice having guys like Jared McCain, Justin Edwards, Adem Bona, Janai Broome, and VJ Edgecombe make under 12% of their team's total cap space, because next year Embiid, Paul George, and Maxey are making over $140 million, which is 92% of the team's total cap space is going to those three players. And you can't even say with certainty that Paul George and Joel Embiid, who are making close to 70% of the team's total cap space, can play over 100 games combined. And for the 2026 season, the Philadelphia 76ers have an over-under of 42.5 wins, which is such an interesting line because there's a chance the Sixers team wins 30 games next year, but maybe there's a chance this team can win 50 games because you can make an argument it's a better team and a deeper team than what they were in 2024. So yeah, I honestly think on paper, this 2026 Sixers roster is better than 2024, but what they had in 2024 was still Embiid at the top of his level. And if Embiid cannot recapture what he was in that season, I don't think this team will make it to the playoffs in 2026. But if Embiid could be somewhat 85-90% of what he was, he could still be one of the best centers in the game. And yeah, in a weaker Eastern Conference with the injuries to Halliburton and Tatum, this team can most definitely make the playoffs either through the play-in tournament or maybe a 5 or a 6 spot in the Eastern Conference. And they're such a hard team to predict in 2026 because I truly believe that McCain, Maxey, Edgecombe, and Grimes can be one of the best backcourt foursomes in the league. I love Justin Edwards going into year number 2, but the numbers may not look as good. You look at somebody like Gigi Jackson in Memphis a few years ago, a second-round pick that had no expectations in his rookie year, took advantage of everybody being injured in 2024 for Memphis, and then last year struggled mostly because of the injury, but because he was also getting thrown out into a new team where he wasn't going to be able to get over 10 shots a night. Maybe that's the same with Edwards next year. But back to where I started this video, I do feel like they are just delaying the inevitable. I don't think the Sixers can make it to the conference finals with Paul George on their roster, making up 33% of the cap space. And it is a shame because they have, like I said, Edgecombe, McCain, and Edwards making 10% of their cap under rookie deals. This is the time where you could be a little bit more aggressive. And I wouldn't be totally shocked if Paul George replicates what he did in 2025, but is a little bit more healthy. But they have the discussion on stretching and waiving him in the 2026 offseason. Yeah, nobody thought the Bucks or the Suns were going to stretch and waive Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal. And in last year's season, Paul George was worse than those two players last year. So you never know what can happen in a year from now. I'm hoping this team is fully healthy because the Eastern Conference needs another really good team at the top. You have New York, you have Cleveland, you have newcomers like Detroit, Atlanta, and Orlando. And the Sixers have solid center depth behind Embiid if he does need to miss 20 or 30 games. But if he's missing over half the season, it's really going to be tough for this Sixers team to go far. They also don't have direct access to their first round pick as well, as it is top 4 protected because the Thunder own it back from the Al Horford salary dump they had to do at the start of the decade. So yeah, where do you guys think the Philadelphia 76ers are going to be in 2026? I do think they are one of the toughest teams to predict because you're really just trying to take the bet on health of Paul George and Joel Embiid and even Jared McCain coming back from a serious injury. And do you think at one point we're going to have a discussion that Paul George maybe gets stretched and waived because nobody wants to trade for him in a year from now? And will anybody want to trade for Embiid if he can't show that he can be healthy again? And who knows, maybe they're going to squander the rookie contracts where you can maximize the rest of your roster with Edgecombe, McCain, and Edwards. And this team is in a weird limbo spot for the next 5 years when they could have fully hit a reset button or a retool button. But like I said at the start, they may just be delaying the inevitable.